Not a matter of if, but when a crisis could rock your world. I'm Roshini Rajkumar, crisis strategist, licensed attorney, and host of The Crisis Files. In each case file, we explore the real world of crisis and prevention. My crisis squad and I seek solutions. We also turn to creative thought leaders for their innovation and game-changing inspiration. Tom Wiese is my guest today, an entrepreneurial business attorney. Tom is a deal maker and a negotiator in a class all his own. He is an advisor, author, and co-founder of Studio E. He has business dealings with Fortune 50 companies and some of the world's best-known chefs and media companies. He happens to be a trusted mentor of mine and advisor to the Crisis Files. Wonderful to have Tom here for his debut episode in the case file I call Navigate That. Tom, you are really known for areas of leadership and this concept of exploratory leadership. What is it?
First of all, thanks for having me today. It's an honor to be here. Exploratory leadership is an art form. Specifically, it's the art motivating yourself and others to effectively travel into the unknown with clarity and confidence to discover more possibility. And with possibility, you can do a lot. When things aren't possible, or you think they're not possible, there's not much you can do. When you're facing a crisis, a lot of people aren't thinking about possibility.
Right, because first of all, for possibility to even be a real factor for you, you have to believe things are possible.
Exactly. When you get into panic mode, when you're reacting, your world and your view of what your options are can get so minute that you're just reacting.
Not only just reacting, but maybe spinning and perhaps creating more of a crisis than you're even in at the moment.
Well, how many crises arrive from the behavior that occurs on some initial event that otherwise wouldn't be a crisis? It would just be like a bad day.
It's so true. Well, this topic means so much to you that you've written about it, your latest book, Explore or Expire. I think that's a provocative title. You're basically saying, get out there, explore, do, or you're going to expire, which could also be taken as die.
It's a metaphor. The world's rapidly changing. Status quo is an illusion. You're either growing or dying because we're all biological beings. Our businesses are all either growing or shrinking. And so, although it is a metaphor, I think it's actually very apropos. And I got it from Buzz Aldrin. So I was at an event. I went up to Buzz, and he's kind of a hero of mine. And I said, Buzz, I teach leadership development.
I love it. You just said Buzz. Hi.
Well, if you ever met Buzz, he's super approachable. Anyway, so I asked him, what is one thing you would tell a leader when they're on their journey? I looked straight into my eyes and he said, we explore or we expire. And I was just like, wow. And that was about, 8 years ago. It's always stuck with me ever since. And it's kind of a mantra that I've embraced, not only organizationally, but personally as well.
It's such a great mantra. And explore to me is such a great word because it connotes possibility. It connotes dreaming. It also says you're going to be challenged because explore by its very nature means you're not there right now. So you got to go out and do. And that's a scary thought for a lot of people, especially when they are in a potential crisis. So when it comes to crisis, what is the starting point for navigating crisis when you have an exploratory mindset?
Initially, when you enter a crisis, you are entering the unknown. So again, that is an exploration. Exploration is going someplace you've never gone before to learn about it and hopefully not die in the process, right? So a crisis is just another form of exploration. You're entering the unknown. So one of the first things that I would advise, whether you have a personal crisis, you're having a business crisis, is to actually not panic. That serves no one, including yourself. So if you can just stop, take a breath, breathe.
Maybe 5 breaths.
And then what I would do is I would look at what is the purpose, if this is an organizational crisis, what's the purpose of our organization? Why are we here? What are the values that have defined how we're going to act within this organization? And I would use those as your guideposts as you start to realize what you need to do. And, I would do a few other things. I would think about so much about a crisis is about the story being told by someone. And so you have this event, you have this crisis event. What story is going to be told about it will actually be the outcome of that event. So you got to think about what stories are we going to tell? What stories are we going to react to? Because sometimes you aren't controlling the story. And I would then say, what outcome do we want? And that would direct what stories we're actually going to tell about this event. It's really a mindset because we have this mindset formula at Studio E. It's events plus the stories you tell about those events equals the outcome. And you control the story part, not the event. So look at what stories you can embrace, what you can tell, and how you can tell them.
We'll take a quick break to tell people what Studio E is. You mentioned it. I mentioned it in your intro. And it really is a game-changing exploratory laboratory in my mind. I experienced Studio E for the first time in 2016. It was my 10-year business anniversary gift to myself and spent the year with you all and my cohort. But give people a snapshot of Studio E.
Yeah, in a nutshell, Studio E is a place where we practice amongst highly qualified leaders. It's a studio, so people are teaching each other. It's not a school where wisdom is coming from the top. It's a studio where people that are talented share with each other, and it's really about exploring for new possibility, learning how to launch new ideas, and then navigating the change that occurs in the world and with your ideas. So it's an explore, launch, and navigate type leadership experience. And it's a really primary skill to develop as a leader since change is on the menu everywhere. In fact, even your intro, it's not a matter of if
but when.
But when. Years ago, business used to have your plan, you launched your plan, and then you made sure people adhered to the goals that rolled up to make that plan possible. And every year or two, you'd have a crisis, you'd deal with it. Now crisis is weekly. It's all the time. So part of the leadership development of any high potential person is they have to know how to deal with crisis because it's everywhere.
It is. We can't get away from it. And that is why our tagline is not a matter of if, but when. What we try to do with the Crisis Files is power people up, help them be ready, because it is going to come, whether it's personal, professional, community, your PTA, I don't care. It's going to happen. But I love that first tip you gave. Just don't panic. Stop the panic button. Unpress that panic button, in fact. What are some of the other pitfalls to avoid when you know crisis is upon you or you want to avoid crisis, but you've gotten past, you're not panicking, but there might be some other pitfalls out there?
Unfortunately, I've been involved with a lot of crisis with clients. One of the pitfalls is not reacting to someone else's story of what's going on without you thinking about the outcome of what you're trying to achieve. You have to stop and think about having a desired outcome. What's my outcome of this situation? And then how do I get there? Versus I'm just going to react to what someone else is doing.
So visualize the outcome you want.
Yeah.
Visualize your outcome, knowing that there is the reality of another narrative or many narratives going on, but at least visualize your outcome.
Exactly. And then I would go back again and revisit your purpose as your guide as you get stuck or as you start to swirl. And that can be your personal purpose or your organizational purpose, because that will guide you every time. We had a client who someone died while they were working there, and it was a horrible situation. And the individual said, I just don't know what to do. And he eventually figured out, I do know what to do. We have values in this organization. I'm going to let those values direct all of the things that we're going to do going forward and the stories we tell about this situation. And they did, and it resolved itself beautifully.
And maybe it wasn't a crisis because they remembered partly what you're saying. First, don't panic. Remember your purpose and live by the values that you have been living by when there wasn't a crisis.
And they will guide you.
They will guide you.
I asked Jimmy Chin, the famous mountain climber guy, how do you not panic when things are going wrong? He says, one of the things you sometimes have to do is the action is doing nothing. I go, what do you mean? He goes, you're on the side of a mountain. Things aren't going the way you want. You have to actively rest. That's the action. And I'm like, active resting is an action? He goes, it is an action because I need to think about the possibility that I have to get out of this situation. And I can't do that without stopping and thinking about what is actually happening. So even when a guy is hanging on the side of a mountain, he's saying, stop, think about what's possible, then make your choice. Now, you ultimately have to take action because you can't hang there forever, but it's just that pause that allows you to actually kind of get your amygdala in your brain to reduce the fear so you can make a better choice.
That is so true. I love that. Actively rest.
Yeah, that's an action.
All right. While I have you here, I want to ask you about some of the game-changing moments in your journey, because you've been one of the game changers in my life as a mentor. And I know that you get the opportunity to meet all kinds of people and go to all kinds of places. But what were some of those moments for you?
There's been a lot. One of them, when Nate Garvis and I decided to start Studio E, we went to 10 real high-level people in Fortune 30 companies, and we said, hey, we're thinking about launching this program that's going to basically help guide high-potential leaders to navigate change. Would you be interested in sending someone from your organization? 10 out of 10 said, yes, we would be willing to do that, but actually we would like to go. So at first that made us extremely happy. Shortly after, a crisis ensued because we had no program.
So you had all the yeses.
Yes, but we hadn't designed a program. It was idea in its infancy. And then the people that were wanting to attend were people that you'd actually really want to
impress.
Yes. And so that was a crisis. It was like, what are we going to do?
You had to explore or expire very quickly.
Exactly. So how we handled that is we stopped, we paused. We thought, what is the purpose of Studio E? It's to help others discover more possibility, right? So what's possible here? And then what we decided to do is level with them in terms of this is going to be a beta experience. We want you to help us design it. So the only way we're going to get this right is if we do everything perfect. And they go, well, that will never happen. All the pressure disappeared. They became co-designers or co-artists, back to the studio concept. And they really embraced it. And the pressure for us was greatly relieved. And they gave us amazing feedback and participated with all their ideas and their energy. And it worked great. But it was a stressful few days.
I bet. So you kind of had to actively rest in its own weird way.
We did have to pause and think about how we're going to deal with this, because our first reaction was, well, we just won't do this. Because we felt like we had this major imposter syndrome thing, on the horizon. But it wasn't. As long as you level with people and tell them what's going on. And again, we used our purpose and we're truthful. And it was amazing. And that happened in 2011. We have had thousands of people go through that program that was really co-designed by some of the initial participants, just willing to help us understand what they thought was valuable and what they thought their teams would think is valuable. It worked great, but it was a crisis and defining moment.
That is amazing after you've had these conversations with these 30 leaders and then immediately, again, not a matter of if but when, and that crisis happened right away, but you solved for it. Thank you, Tom Wiese. Discover and explore with Tom directly at yourstudioe.com. Also, get his book, Explore or Expire. Find it as a book, an ebook, or an audiobook on Amazon and wherever you get books. Today's Crisis Brief is brought to you by Spoke 612 Productions. Number 1. Exploratory leadership is the art of motivating yourself and others to effectively travel into the unknown with clarity and confidence to discover more possibility. Number 2. Your purpose and values are always there to guide you, both personally and professionally. Number 3. Remember, actively resting in order to reflect on what's possible is sometimes your best action. Spoke 612 Productions takes your ideas and brings them to life. Linda, Sarah, and Matt are committed to excellence and inclusivity. As a WeBank certified women-owned production company, Spoke 612 inspires awareness and delivers impact through storytelling. When you put your project in their hands, Spoke 612 draws on their own talents and experience to ensure they tell the best possible version of your story. Visit their portfolio at spoke612.com. Rate and review The Crisis Files on your platform of choice. Catch up on all case files at thecrisisfiles.com for the show archive plus special videos. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram at The Crisis Files. I'm Roshini Rajkumar. Join me next time on The Crisis Files.